I hope I'm audible. So once again, a very warm welcome. If you can hear me, just give me a heads up because my technical team tells me that. Okay, so Sushma Morthania here, Director General India SME Forum, welcoming all the esteemed panelists and guests and all our members, viewers who have joined us on YouTube and Facebook on the second webisode of the Digital Transformation series. India SME Forum sincerely believes that digital transformation is the key to improving productivity, access to and sustainable growth of Indian MSMEs. India SME Forum has conducted a nationwide campaign in 1920 with the initiative Accelerating Business Exponentially Using Digital Technology with Intel, Salesforce, DIY HR, and the initiative was supported by the Ministry Government of India. Through that initiative, 12,000 SMEs with knowledge and a first-hand experience of digital tools and technologies for enhancing productivity and efficiency, as extending market reach. Since the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, India has seen a rapid deployment of digital transformation strategies and tools while accelerating the transition of consumer-facing MSME businesses to digital trade and e-commerce. Moving forward with our agenda of digital enablement for MSME, India SME Forum has launched this digital transformation with the objective of realigning MSME sustainable growth. We had a episode in the series on October, which was for online and offline sales. Today's webisode on digital transformation, enhancing sales in the festive season through e-commerce. And we have a very august panel here present today. PG waving at me, always such a pleasure to see you. I welcome our esteemed, very esteemed panelists here today. Ajit Balakrishnan ji, founder Rediff.com, who has been the chairman of Board of Governors IIM Calcutta for 2 terms. He has also been the member of committee that updated 2008. He personally wrote Section 79 governs internet platforms. He chaired Ministry of Information Technology Working Group on Internet Governance and Proliferation in 2005 to 2008. He has also served as a member of his IIM Review Committee, Internet and Mobile Association, member of the 4-man Commerce Ministry Working Group, negotiating India's position on e-commerce access at the World Trade Organization, Ministry of IT nominee on the board of Center for Development of Advanced Computing Technologies. Welcome, Mr. Ajit Balakrishnan. To join the panel, we have Mr. Sushant Rabra. He is the partner at KPMG Management Consulting Practice. He leads agenda on digital consulting services. He is very passionate about evolving business and innovation in the e-commerce, internet economy, consumer, pharma, and related areas. In the last 16 years with KPMG, he has extensively worked on the boardroom agenda pertaining to growth, operating model, efficiency, and customer experience. He has extensively worked with Fortune 500 clients in Europe, Middle East, as well as Asia Pacific region. Welcome, Mr. Rabra. Another very esteemed guest, Mr. Nitin Wali, Regional Director, New Star. For 2 decades in the technology industry, Nitinji has worked with leading organizations such as IBM, Intel, Oracle, VeriSign, straddling roles across business development, marketing, project, product management, sales, and alliances. He is extremely passionate about creating meaningful impact through technology. He is on a mission to drive digital transformation using the power of internet. He supports small businesses in India to leverage the internet to build their brand and reach customers. Nitinji is responsible for product management of the .in registry and engagement with multiple internet community stakeholders in his current role as regional director at New Star. And he is also one of the most esteemed of India SME Forum. And with this August panel, we have very enterprising and two dynamic ladies here. Miss Kamna Hazrati, co-founder of the Yaya Cafe and giftsmate.net. With 11 years of progressive work experience in e-commerce and digital landscape with two successful startups in e-commerce. The two startups that she started or co-founded are the Yaya Cafe and giftsmate.net. They are one of the most sought after e-tail private label brands for quirky products, achieving annual gross sales of over 150 million cumulatively. She is the achiever, one of the festive sellers, and amongst top 10,000 sellers 2019 on Amazon.in. And she was amongst the featured women entrepreneur on the Amazon Small Business Program 2019. Well, congratulations and welcome, Kamna. Miss Jeenal Ajmera, founder Creative Ideas.store. Jeenal started her entrepreneurial journey in college. Today, she runs an e-commerce portal for next to live their fandom. At creativeideas.store, they curate creative designs and communicate fandom with extraordinary merchandise. She is also on a mission to donate 1 million masks, which is one of a kind of a campaign supported by Mr. Devendra, Bhagat Singh Koshyarji, Sonu Sood, Karthik Aryan, and many such renowned personalities. In the past, she has worked with more than 300 businesses to set up their online business online. How to engage the audience and visitors into customers is something one can learn from her. So, welcome all of you. And to talk to this panel today, we have our Honorary President, Shri Vinod Kumar, also a venture fund investor and one of the mentors of India SME Forum. He mentors 3,000 entrepreneurs and he invests in small and medium companies with a ticket size of 2 million to 20 million. So, welcome, sir, to you. And in today's panel discussion, we would like to cover certain pointers which include e-commerce accelerating digital transformation, boosting business through e-commerce during in both B2B and B2B, a global e-commerce exports, enabling Indian MSMEs to succeed in exports to global markets, and what are the challenges and solutions to those challenges for MSMEs. I guess we'll be able to cover these pointers with this great speakers here today. So over to you, Vinod sir.
Thank you, Sushma ji. It's such a pleasure to be in the August company of Ajit ji again. It is such a pleasure.
And I would like to mention here that we are joined by I can see 1,800 viewers joined us here today live on YouTube and Facebook. So over to you, sir. Sorry to interrupt you there.
No, no, that's absolutely fine. I mean, it was good to know that we have so many people, so many expectations and so many questions that they will have. So, taking this forward, I hope my voice is clear because Sushmaji's voice was sort of coming and going. Thank you. We all know we all know Ajit's experience as far as e-commerce is concerned, and the fact that he's been an innovator who has seen this entire wave of e-commerce, the entire internet wave, much ahead of all of us. And so, my first question goes to him. We'd like to know from him, given his experience, given his, the fact that he could see all this much before us. I would like to know from Ajit, how important do you feel is digital transformation for the overall sustainable growth of MSMEs, especially in India?
Okay, I hope my voice is clear and not breaking. Is it?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, thank you, thank you. I'm no doubt all of you know I'm a great fan of the digital transformation business, but I need to tell you upfront that the way it is going in India is not what I would have wanted to have. If I was playing God, I think, India has, as you people know, 50, 60 million MSMEs. And the way the current direction which e-commerce is developing is undermining the business of these. That is not how all of us idealists who foresaw this coming wanted it to be. Today it is undermining it because international venture capital is subsidizing losses of players, and the only goal of many of the players in India seem to be to increase valuation and sell it to an international player. And I don't know what else do they do. Do they retire to Switzerland? I have no idea what they do after they sell this. But the purpose of business is not to make as much money as you can as quickly as you can. It cannot be. There is a very cheap way of cheapening the goal of business. So I think e-commerce and the digital transformation has tremendous possibilities. I still remain very idealistic about it. It allows to reduce, what in manufacturing it was called economies of scale, the key method by which efficiency is obtained. In the digital world, it's called network effects. That's how key efficiencies are created. But in India and in much of the world, it's turning into something awful, So I'm seeing many small shops shut down, and this process was well underway well before the work from home and COVID business. So we need to do better policy making at the government level to make sure that the digital transformation doesn't go and hurt Indians, and the economy that we have built in. So, I don't want to sound pessimistic to begin with. What we'd like to do is somehow influence policy in a way that kirana shops can prosper, not fade away. Our wholesale distributors, who are the main backstay of India and backbone of India, can reach out to more markets rather than trying to hide and somehow survive. So, at the risk of sounding a little pessimistic, I think we need to focus on the policy aspects and make sure that MSMEs benefit from the digital transformation and are not made to suffer. That is by way of an opening remark.
It's excellent. So that set the tone for us, I presume. The fact that we are talking about, when you are looking at, sort of morphing this nation into a digital nation, whether it's digital payments, whether it's digitally reaching out to people. What my personal opinion is that most MSMEs in India primarily have very small footprints when it comes to reaching out to markets, when it comes to selling their products and all that. And I have felt that, in some way or the other, if there is a continuous push towards digital enablement where all of them can actually reach out with their products, and we have some excellent products that are coming out from clusters which are nowhere connected to cities at times, and that I feel is also the reason for their exploitation. So, and I've seen quite a few cases where textile owners, textile, I would say looms, people who want to hand looms, toy manufacturers, a lot of them sell their stuff for very, very little to merchants. And because they are not able to actually reach out to the end consumer who might be probably buying the product at much higher costs. And I feel that is the one part of e-commerce that can actually enthuse all our MSMEs, wherever they are around the country. With that, I'd like to ask Sushant, e-commerce globally, when we talk about trade that is happening through e-commerce, and then we look at, the developed nations, and then we look at India, where do you feel, how far behind are we, or are we catching up? And where do you see this graph of e-commerce, trade through e-commerce growing?
Sure, thank you. So first of all, it's great to be in this August company here and to be on this panel. Now, specifically on the question that you asked, I think when we talk about e-commerce or digital channels, we have already crossed the point of no return. So essentially, it's only going to go forward the way I see it. The rate of change would be different in different economies. There was a very interesting forward-doing rounds, which was about how America has moved almost 10 years ahead in e-commerce penetration in last 3 months in terms of the percentage penetration. Right? So the scenario that we find ourselves in, especially in COVID times, it's fairly conducive for e-commerce and digital channels, both from the customer perspective as well as from the business perspective, because businesses also realize that they are facing a lot of disruption in the usual on-trade or off-trade channels to reach out to the customer. So from that perspective, I would say the way forward, of course, is more and more adoption of e-commerce. And the second part of the question that you asked, whether we are ahead, we are behind, I would say it's very interesting mix. India exists in multiple areas at the same time, right? I take example of telecom infrastructure. So we have 2G, we have 3G, we have 4G, and now we're talking about 5G all at the same time, different price points. Same story is going to happen in e-commerce. So there are a set of customers, primarily, tier one, which are looking at e-commerce in a different way. There are customers who are in the hinterland, which are looking at e-commerce in a completely different way. Products, services aggregators, new business models. So in many ways, I would say we are following the path which was followed by the leading countries. But whenever I talk to my counterparts elsewhere across the world, I would say there's a fair degree of innovation which is happening in India, right, in terms of e-commerce. So for example, we heard about the correspondent model in small villages and Mufsil towns, where essentially there is a trust from an e-commerce perspective. Then we saw about innovation happening in payments like UPI, which does not exist in anywhere in the developed world, but it's an outstanding path-breaking innovation that has happened, and so on and so forth. So there is fair degree of innovation that is happening in India, which will possibly get replicated elsewhere, especially in the Southeast Asia market. But at the same time, on the mainstream e-commerce side, I think we will follow the same trend. And the advantage that we have is, we don't have a baggage in that sense. So there could be a chance that the penetration into India is much higher. And the last point, again, to reiterate my point earlier, is that India would exist in multiple eras. So you would have e-commerce and digital channels. What do they mean for tier one suppliers, luxury suppliers and customers, versus what it means for bottom of the pyramid, maybe villages and towns kind of a customer. So it will mean different things for different people, but we have our own unique path going ahead.
Excellent. So that takes me forward to Nitin. Nitin has been at the forefront of this entire revolution over the last 2 decades, and he's been working with the companies across the board and who are right at the crux of this entire thing, whether it's domains, whether it is the entire e-shopping, all of it. So Nitin, my next question goes to you. So like Sushant said, it's not a new concept anymore. It's something that we are already on. But when you look at countries like South Korea, or you look at China, for example, what you find is they've used e-commerce to enable labor-intensive exports, and in a very, very big way. So where do you find that we in India have this great potential, but we are unable to take it to that level, where now rural people are, entrepreneurs in the semi-urban areas, in rural areas, people in clusters, in villages and all that can be enabled through all of this?
Yeah, thank you, Vinodji. First of all, am I visible? Because I just lost power at my house. Just wanted to make sure you
Yes,
can
you
see.
are.
Okay,
Yes,
so that's part of life here in Gurgaon. But yeah, so thanks, Anand, first of all, for inviting me to this platform. I just wanted to start off with saying that we're actually quite privileged in India today to have access to quality internet, mobile broadband, and affordable devices. And that was not really the case always, right? I remember in the mid '90s when I was growing up, you had dial-up internet where you couldn't really do much. It wasn't really very productive, and even that access was essentially for very few people, right? And fast forward that today, when Indians are consuming an average of 11 GB of data, have the highest number of app downloads, and are one of the fastest growing internet consumer bases, I think we've come a long way. So I think we have arrived on the world internet scene with digital adoption by businesses growing. Again, it may not have grown to the extent that we wanted, but I think the COVID pandemic has hastened this digital adoption by SMEs, right? And coming specifically to the e-commerce piece, if you look at the Indian retail pie, from reports that that it's pegged at around 850 billion odd dollars, out of which e-commerce is probably about 7 to 9% of that. So there is a huge, substantial headroom for growth for all of us, right, as businesses. And in countries like South Korea and China that you mentioned, to some degree, what has happened is that the enabling infrastructure pillars were put in place, and planners saw the value of the internet economy and how it could actually add to the country's economic progress. Coming back to what Ajit said initially, that what was envisioned as the internet or as digital transformation probably has not taken place in our country to that extent, right? So that in turn, I think, in terms of connectivity, has ensured that process automation and intensive manufacturing plants have actually come up all over the country in these locations, right? So you could essentially produce in a remote corner of the country, and the internet would obviously help you look for customers within the country and in global markets. And with the rapid adoption of digital and e-commerce, SMEs also across have been able to reduce cost of labor, logistics, warehousing, marketing, and all of the other pieces essentially make them more competitive. Now, coming specifically to India, right? I mean, in India, you have what anything between 50 to 60 million SMEs presently, right? And while, like I said, a digital adoption is growing, a majority of them still do not even have a simple thing like a business domain or a digital presence on any marketplace, right? And this is something, in my view, that really needs to be fixed. And this is basic, digital hygiene, if you may, in that sense. A research report by Google, I think it was 2 years back, mentioned that there was a staggering 68% of Indian SMEs which were completely offline, with only about 2% of them actively selling or promoting their business online. And these numbers obviously would have improved over the last 2 years, but we certainly need to move this needle also, right? The humble internet essentially has brought efficiency of scale and democratized the flow of access and information, but there still is a huge way for us to go forward. And I only feel that this new normal, and now obviously this is a very cliched phrase, but this new normal will be the digital age, right? And those who really fail to recognize this even after the events of 2020 will probably be obliterated in that sense. And just some fun facts. Obviously, this is a August platform. People are obviously aware of all of that, but just a fun fact. It took the internet only about 4 years to reach 50 million users. It took radio about 38 years, sorry, to actually reach 50 million users. So that's really the power of the internet that I think we as businesses, as consumers, should actually look and adopt. So I strongly believe that SMEs coming online and should be looking at doing much more than they're doing today, right? And we have some of the smartest minds and best in class companies. So there's no reason why we can't grow. And again, coming back to another report, I think it was Amazon's Export Digest, which came on recently, which essentially talked about 60,000 small businesses contributing to $2 billion in exports through their export program, which is
In ex-
which is just about, I think, 0.1% of our, if I even take a 60 million base, right? So even if you look at that growth, if that number even increases to 1% of the total MSMEs in India, I think we're in for good times. So that's my opinion.
Excellent. And there was light. So you finally
Yes, I found light. Yes, hallelujah.
So shed some light on these numbers, and so we finally had light. So I go back to Ajit. Now that we've discussed the overall scenario, where do you, as a visionary, see e-commerce over the next 5 to 10 years? And do you feel that it's going to be a enabler for small medium enterprises in India, or do you feel that it may be a hindrance for their survival? Like you mentioned, as far as kirana goes or retail goes, there might be issues at that end where they are not enabled, and very few people like to buy from them at times. So what do you feel? Where do you see e-commerce coming out maybe 5-10 years down the line? Ajit, you are on mute.
Oh, sorry. It is left to us as Indians and assertive policy makers to take it in the right direction and not sit back full of admiration for America and Europe and Germany and all that bullshit. That is, even my parents' generation were not into it.
Right.
But I think it's very important to make sure that our competition law, first of all, is upgraded. Competition law is arcane and it's about 50 years behind time. It is done in a way that you won't have the spectacle of an Amazon in India losing 20,000 crores or some astronomical figure like that. And what is formerly Flipkart has been found by way of an American company to enter India, and they are losing another 15,000 crores. All that is, cheap interest-free capital from America coming and dominating the Indian economy. You can't have that. We must wake up. We should stop being, kind of entranced by America as ahead of us and all that bullshit. Not true. I spend a lot of time in America, and all some of my best friends are Americans. But I think India is, in some fundamental ways, ahead of America. America is a country in decline, and India is a country going forward. So we have to make sure that our policies are right. First, bring in a competition law which prevents subsidized selling, which is what these American companies are doing in India, including Google, I might add. It is not, stop being entranced by these American giants. Start from there. Start to make sure that Indian companies rise to the top. It is very, very important that we preserve the nature and characters of our MSMEs, because that is a distinctively Indian characteristic. When Tim Berners-Lee and people like me and others, were super enthusiastic in the mid-90s about the internet, it was in an idealistic way. It is not in a money-making way. The goal is not to put away money in switch tab bank accounts. The goal was to enable more people, the smaller they are, individuals, housewives, individual taxi owners, taxi drivers, to become more empowered rather than becoming slaves. So it is turned in the wrong direction, because I think that you, at a policy making level, many of them I know personally over the last few years, there's not enough educated people up there. We're looking at America and saying, let's learn everything from there. That era is, we have to put behind us. But what we need to do is enable a better competition policy to make sure that the right parts of the internet are brought into play. The second part of it is to make sure that the internet, like industry, like the industrial revolution and the internet revolution, can be used for your good or you can use for your bad. The industrial revolution, for all the goodness it did, also was used as a vehicle for slavery to be enhanced. Cheap cotton to be brought, you have to enslave poor Africans, and slavery is a direct connection to the industrial revolution, because he who can't compete on industrial economics goes and enslaves people and gets cheap cotton. So we don't want that to happen on the internet era. We have to make sure. I'll tell you my wish and dream and where all it will go. For example, today the legal system in India is arcane. It takes a very many years for a decision to come. It's one of the projects I'm working for purely idealistically is that we will automate this for use, machine learning in a way that if two people have a dispute, they go to ATM-like machines down in Bombay where I live, and both speak, put 100 rupee bill, both speak the case, and a judgment is issued instantly instead of going through months and weeks of adjournments and so on. So people will start respecting justice when it's available for 100 to 200 rupees. They won't have to hire gundas to break your opponent's back if you have a dispute. As it happens, I don't know where you guys live. Well, I live in Colaba in Bombay, so I watch all this happening all the time. They say, why go to a judge? Because the lawyers will fleece us and it'll take us 5 years. Let's hire a gunda and settle it here. What is the problem? So that is in 2020, it's going on. I'm telling you, I walk around and meet and talk to all these guys. So we need to use internet, artificial intelligence, machine learning to speed up our justice system so that, India is one of the few democracies in the world left. You see the trash that is going on in the United States right now. India is among the few democracies left inside. It should enable people to work from home. Thank God we had to have COVID before we could get this implemented, because young Indian women are gems which you can't find anywhere else in the world. They like to be good mothers. They like to be good professionals. And they like to make sure that all your parents are looked after. You can do all that working from home using the internet. That poor woman has to travel 2 hours as they have to do in Bombay to reach her workplace and 2 hours back. It's against the interest of a family, etc. But thanks to the internet, I'm seeing young women at every economic level becoming complete mothers, complete professionals, writing cutting-edge journal articles, looking after their own parents at home. There are good things which can happen on the internet, which we must enable it. I said one is in the area of justice and law, the other is in the area of trade, work from home, and the third is in the area of medical science. I think if today a small rickshaw driver in Bombay, Colaba, falls ill, he dare not go to a physician, but the physician in Colaba will charge 600 rupees. That this man's 3 days' wages. So he lets it pass and gets even more diseased. Okay, now if you have use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and things inside medical science, and I fervently wish it because my father and both my grandparents were doctors. You can imagine that in the Malabar in Kerala. So I think if you have artificial intelligence-based medical science, GP's income will come down, but the cost of getting a medical advice will become 50 to 75 rupees. So everyone will become healthy. So I think we should drive e-commerce in that direction rather than making for mobile phones cheaper by discounting prices so that people sell at a loss and so on. And we have to steer e-commerce in the right direction, not make it a scourge on society.
I quite agree.
I hope.
Yeah, you've given us a complete overview. You've been on so many committees. I'm sure you are following up with the government on this. But I did note quite a few points here, and I'm going to have a separate chat with you on a few of them. So Ajit is going to go because he was here for a short time. He's got a lot more to do. So thank you very much.
I can stay for another 10, 15 minutes. I will listen. You guys. I'd like to learn. I like to learn from Kamna and Jinal and all. I want to learn. I'm waiting for them to speak. Yeah.
Excellent. So my next question goes to Kamna. Kamna, you set up a e-commerce platform. You sold using Amazon. You sold using a lot of other platforms also, and you've sold inland as well as for exports. So how has been your experience in setting up and then having a successful outing? When you are doing this entire e-commerce sales.
Okay, I'll just give a brief of how I started. Maybe because I started about 11 years ago. So at that time, e-commerce was still coming to India. So this was the time when back in 2012 we had Jungli.com from Amazon, which was doing comparison websites. Snapdeal was still a discount coupon site, and I was very new and fresh in my career then. Started my journey as a media marketing executive with a style fashion magazine, online magazine, and then progressed to a digital media agency. And from there, we founded our businesses in 2014, and which was giftsmade.net. And then in 2016, we founded the Yaya Cafe, which is so giftsmade.net is an e-commerce platform. We sell gifts online. We specialize in customized gifting. And 2016 was the Yaya Cafe, which is a private label brand. And from there is actually I think 2014-15 is from where our journey actually began, because before that we were doing a lot of things, we were failing a lot, we were doing a lot, and we were just pivoting back and forth, what to do, what does the customer want, what can we bring to the plate. So I think my throughout my journey selling, it has been on learning on the go. 11 years ago you don't have those digital marketing courses which you have now, so they were not there back in the curriculum then. So all these things, we learned on the go. We created products on the go. We went back to the customers. We did a lot of voice of customer exercises. We went back and forth to learn what to sell, how to sell. Did a lot of courses myself on from selling online to how to set up a business, inventory management. So all this, uh, I think entrepreneurship just happened in a way, kind of. I was not uh, well read or study. I have not studied business then. So, and I came from a very humble background. My parents were both in service. So for them, it was still hard to comprehend that their girl wants to do something of their own. And I had to fight a lot of time to just put myself uh, across and get myself heard that no, I want to do this, and that's where my passion lies. So I think from you know doing e-commerce, I think what we are all listening to is just selling online. There's a lot which you have to do as you set up a traditional business. That's what you do when you're doing an online business as well. There are few more things which gets added to your kitty, like you learn how to do online marketing, you learn how to manage your inventory and returns, optimize things, uh, optimize your operations on whole. Uh, it's different from an offline store, because when you are offline, your customer can come and feel and see, touch the product, but in online space that's not available. So it's very important how you set up your brand right, how you communicate about your brand, how you communicate about it through the catalog you offer, through the packaging you give, through the customer support you provide. um, so it all adds up there. So I think that's been about our journey in e-commerce, from by selling either in domestic market or exporting it. When we are exporting it, it's a different market, so we study that market, and that's how we for that market we create our products. When we do the same thing in India, then we create market as uh, the customer wants it here. So we tweak and create, and we are very strong creatively. So it's a process which we keep going after, back and forth, to create products which fit the market. And that's about.
Cool. So, in fact, I'd like to go to Sushant here. Sushant, there's been a lot of talk about creating a conducive environment for e-commerce. And, as Ajit did talk about, there is a certain amount of discussion which is happening. There's a new e-commerce policy which is supposed to have come in. And so it's going back and forth between the ministry and the Niti Aayog and so on and so forth. What do you think? What is happening in terms of the new policy, and when is it coming, if at all? And what does it contain?
Right. So there have been a lot of deliberations on the policy, and extensive consultations are also being carried out. I'm aware of at least 3 or 4 different forums where the government is engaging with the larger industry. And these are large organizations as well as industry groups and associations, right, to take feedback on what is the right policy. However, I do want to highlight 3 things which are important for e-commerce to be successful. The first theme that I want to highlight essentially is that it is a innovative business, right? So you will continue to innovate new business models. We used to talk about inventory-led and platform-aligned e-commerce business models, right? And then, of course, since then, there are 20 different variants that you see out there in the marketplace. The policy will have to pretty much catch up to the innovation that is being done by entrepreneurs. The straitjacket definition of what's a business model A or a B or a C may not survive for long. So therefore, the policy will have to be flexible to accommodate innovation while still providing a light touch governance to ensure a level playing field for everyone. So that's the first thing that I wanted to highlight. Second is, while policy is there, the second big theme, which especially in context of MSMEs, which becomes relevant, is access to talent and technology, right? Let's say if you want to go and sell online, or you want to look at B2B sales, or on the procurement side, you want to look at e-commerce. Many of the MSMEs that we work with, they come back and say that they don't know how to go about it, right? And they can't hire, for example, top digital talent to come and do that for them, right? So from that perspective, we will need to look at innovative models, which is a collaboration model, either within MSMEs or MSMEs plus industry associations and platforms like yours, which allow MSMEs to get access to the talent as and when they need, and therefore they can get access to the leading practices. So just because you're small should not lock you out of what technology can do for you as a business. The third theme which I wanted to highlight is on capital, right? Now, of course, there are ways and means to set up an e-commerce organization or expand your organization into a digital channel with a certain amount of investment. But many of the MSMEs come back and say that capital hurdles prevent them from accessing these channels effectively. Now, this could be the initial access that they need, and this could also be the ongoing access. This, for example, in terms of digital marketing, brand building, customer service, and so on, which they need to build to be effective in this particular era. Now, at least in the developed countries and some of the Southeast Asian countries where we work with, there have been fairly interesting risk and reward sharing models that have been created, which allow that hurdle rate for MSMEs to be brought down, and larger stakeholders coming together to share that risk and, of course, the reward from there. In addition to that, many of the leading technology players are offering their solutions in a SaaS model, pay-per-use model, and so on, which reduce the hurdle rate for MSMEs. So I would say, while you asked me about the policy, but policy will have to also accommodate not just the transactional side of how that business should be run and governed, but also how do we build up the talent pipeline and skill pipeline for MSMEs? How do we provide access to that? How do we enable innovative capital structuring models so that MSMEs can actually get access to that? I think those dimensions will also need to be addressed if we want MSMEs to really take advantage of the e-commerce wave in the country.
Excellent. So, that takes me to Nitin. I'd like to go back to Nitin. Nitin, what sort of solutions do you envisage there are going to be in the near future, which will enable micro, small, medium enterprises to boost their business, primarily when it comes to e-commerce, both in the B2B as well as B2C space? Especially, also we've seen cyclic buying. So buyers, normally when there is a festive season, you'll see a lot of rush, and you'll see people buying like what was shown on TV in the last 4 or 5 days. Everybody's on the streets. Everybody's on the streets buying. Everybody is buying online. So this festive season sort of seems to be like the MSME's haven, because this is the time when he can actually sell whatever he has held on to or made the entire year. So what do you feel? Do we have enough of these solutions available? And what more solutions do you think will come in the near future when it concerns the B2B and the B2C space both?
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I think again, starting with a very cliched statement, but I think our world essentially has seen a very dramatic shift over the last couple of months, right? It obviously will not be business as usual going forward, and the earlier the businesses realize that, the better, right? Now, I believe even when we move forward, say maybe a year down the road or 2 years down the road, we may not have just offline and just online models, right? We'll have a mix of both offline and online models. So you will probably need to succeed at both the models, because both of them have their advantages and maybe to some degree disadvantages as well, right? So for businesses not on the digital path, I would like to reiterate that moving from a brick and mortar establishment to say an e-commerce enabled model or a platform is actually not that difficult, right? Technology in that sense has kind of evolved pretty rapidly over the last couple of years. Where to Sushant's point earlier, cloud services and SaaS enablement has meant that you essentially can get online at a very fraction of the cost that would have cost you a couple of years back, right? So that's something that we certainly need to look at. And there are a lot of organizations and companies and platforms that can help businesses, small businesses, and even micro businesses to actually get up there and leverage the internet, right? So having said that, I think the other piece that I really wanted to bring out was specifically around the festive season, right? So if you look at the consumer attention span, right, and there's been a lot of research obviously on that, especially in the e-commerce space, in terms of how much attention span does a consumer have once he's on the web or he's looking at a website or at an e-commerce site or is trying to do a transaction, right? So progressively, year on year, it is actually going down. It's going down, right? I think as of now, I think I read a Merrimeeker report. I think the last Merrimeeker report said that the consumer attention span was about 8 seconds, and they actually correlated that with the attention span of a goldfish, and the goldfish actually had a higher attention span. So that essentially tells you how difficult it is to actually engage customers online, right? And the other piece that I really want to bring forward was that on the internet, trust really matters. So the platform that you adopt for your digital journey is also very, very critical. So if you've already started, or a business has already started on the digital journey and have essentially covered basics like, for example, having a business domain, a business email, a website, and maybe listing on a marketplace, they should also look at things beyond that. So look at some of the pieces that I think Amna also talked about in terms of the customer experience. How do you make it more personalized? How do you make it more one-on-one? So essentially that means more specific products for specific customers. And this comes from understanding the whole customer journey, purchase history, likes, dislikes, and obviously it has to have a strong technology backbone. The other piece that I think Ajit mentioned earlier on was around artificial intelligence, right? So artificial intelligence also actually has become very user-friendly, contrary to what people may still think, and it comes into play and can be utilized to make this personalization even more effective. And again, there are lots of organizations who can actually provide those AI tools. Could be plugins, could be chatbots. All of those can actually be readily used off the shelf on a SaaS model, right? And using these AI tools, you could potentially give relevant suggestions to customers to improve your shopping cart size based on what similar customers would have bought or are buying or are browsing. So that's a lot of intelligence that comes in, right? And this essentially, I think, would correlate to what you would probably do in a offline or a brick and mortar kind of store, right? If a customer walks in, you tell him, "Sir, this looks really nice on you." 10 customers today bought the same thing, stuff like that. So that's the level of personalization that you would expect or you would want when you're going online. And I think based on specific consumer behavior also, you could target customers who have actually abandoned their shopping cart. So it's akin to me walking into a store, not liking anything, just walking out, right? There would potentially be no way of you to force me to come back to that store, right?
Yes.
But on the internet, you could essentially use all these tools that are available, which will actually give you an indication. Hey, you know what? His cursor is moving from your product to the exit button, right? So bang, at that given time, you would actually flash a discount for him to make sure that he stays on. So you actually get more revenue out of a customer whom you've actually worked hard to get onto your site. And I think this is even more critical during this festive season and during the present unfortunate pandemic that we're all going through. And you would obviously have more than average customers, but then shopping online, but then you would also have more than average, businesses online who are looking for the same set of customers. So if you can add additional pieces to your business to stand out as you would do in a physical store, I think those pieces would help.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Dayanand. In fact, I'll go to Jinal. Jinal has been heading a team of women for women, for enablement, digital enablement, and e-commerce. And what we've been trying to do is work with them and get them on board various e-commerce platforms and all that. So Jinal has a lot of experience in working with, apart from her own business, also working with women who are trying to get online and primarily get into e-commerce sales and many other ways of actually reaching out their products. So I'd like to ask Jinal this, that how does basically a small enterprise, in your experience, enable this digital selling or e-commerce immediately, especially for the festive season? Now that we started, it goes right across to Christmas, and this entire time has a bicycle, whether in India or around the world, and this happens in all major countries around the world. So what do you feel that would a small enterprise need to do quickly to be able to sort of get into the wave now, and especially if they've not so far done it?
Thank you, Vinod sir, and thank you everyone for sharing your views. And I'm grateful that I'm here with these prestigious people. When it comes to e-commerce, there are MSME or any business has an idea what to sell and what is their product, and they know they have done the business in our B2B market or maybe in an offline market. Now the next thing what they have to understand is what one of my colleague has just rightly said, that how do they actually engage customer, or how do they create that kind of a personal experience, or probably how do they capture the right kind of talent who will do the operational activity on technique or a technical front for themselves, and reach make their product discoverable or make their brand discoverable to the right kind of buyer. Because already if you see with this new normal or whatever the lockdown period which we have faced, I've seen those uncles or aunties who's not thinking of going online, or who was scared about buying something from online, are actually asking me, or even in like my relatives are asking me and calling me, can you just order something for me from that particular site and then deliver it to my home or something. So at this point in time, it's really it's a right kind of intersection for business, internet. And having said that, whatever is happening around the world, but it is good for Indian consumer, Indian market, and the entire e-commerce Indian e-commerce industry. I've been reading about COVID effect on businesses and all, but one of the articles says that e-commerce is COVID proof. So it has not got any effect. It has not been affected by COVID hit, because most of the transaction has, if you see, Swiggy is promoting their ad saying this many crores of biryani has been ordered on Swiggy, and so that is the kind of the penetration has on internet has increased during this 6 months. And not just that, one other day I was talking to Amazon people, the seller, the team, acquisition team, and they were mentioning about how busy they have been into this lockdown, because a lot of people have been procrastinating about going online or putting their product on marketplaces, or putting out their own website or something. And now, because of this particular time which they have got, it's like their honeymoon period which they have received from the god. It's the nature has given them the time to improvise their business and venture into the online, and make it as a business itself, and not just a part of their the entire activity. Moving to of course the current number itself says how festive season festive season sales are impactful. if you see to the 2019 Indian festive season sale number, which was somewhere around through 3.6 billion or something, and now in the first 3 days of Big Billion and Amazon Great Indian Festive Sale, it has reached to that particular number, and during this 30 days, I guess it was anyway just forecasted to have double the number than last year, and it has reached more than that. So if in Indian consumer, where internet scope, the internet and the know-how about online purchase and sales is very very less, and the market is not that mature, I would say. Still the number has got double it has doubled from the last year. Having said that, whatever the recession or whatever the job cuts, pay cut, and all those issues which as a buyer as well as a seller has faced during this last 6-7 months, still it has doubled the number in Indian market itself, and it has grown the number. It has made everyone's Diwali special. So of course it's going to get I think many faults for the next festive season as well, because when it comes to the festivities, everyone, it's not just India where festivals are more important. In fact, across world, Christmas is becoming a very important part, and then gifting on the Christmas, or having having that exchange of the thoughts and ideas at the time of festivities is a trend, and of course it's going to grow. I really feel that there is a huge potential. If at all a business who's thinking to start off their online business, this is the golden period for them, and put out their product not just in Indian marketplace or Indian, just limit themselves in India. If at all they are putting it up on .com, Amazon.com, or probably they can just expand their website and add some logistic partner who will ship the product in international market. There is a lot of potential for Indian product. Knowing that our other competitor countries are not doing that great, of course, so Indian products are going to make a difference when it comes to purchasing, buyers' behavior across the world. They would prefer more of Indian product rather than any competitor company or countries. So in that case, I really think any brand or any business, whether it is a small scale or a medium one, or just starting. It's just an idea of a business also, they should look at internet as their market, and internet is global, and so that the global international is of course the globe is their market, and they should plan out their entire inventory or customer experience for the international market itself, and not just keeping it limited to it.
That was good explanation.
Vinod, may I exit at this point?
Yes, Ajit sir. Thank you very
you
much.
so much for
I got a chance to listen to. I got a chance to listen to all of you. I need to go for another meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much.
In fact, while Gina was talking about it, I'd like to go back to Sushant. Gina talked about exports and the possibility of how exports has great potential for Indian enterprises, especially because when you look at the numbers, I think somebody's. Gina, would you put yourself on mute? I'm getting a lot of noise from you.
Sorry.
So what I was saying was that, how is it that we can enable this MSMEs from India primarily to be able to reach out to markets that they have never seen? When we talk about numbers, I was told the other day that there are lakhs and lakhs of people who registered to be an exporter with their IEC code and all. And then finally, when you look at the number of active exporters in India, it's less than 35,000. Those numbers are minuscule when you talk about, which are the real people who are exporting. So how do you enable this entire group of micro, small, medium enterprises which are sitting at rural areas, who have a market though around the world and who want to sell everywhere around the world? How important is e-commerce for these people to be able to reach out? And with the numbers like Nitin was talking about, with Amazon looking at $2 billion they've already crossed in terms of exports, and they are now looking at bettering that number, because it's been 3 years for the first billion and then 1 year for the next billion. So they are now looking at multiplying it, and I'm sure they will, because when you look at the number of MSMEs who are saying that they have great products and they are getting on and off buyers, but they don't have a clear funnel that they can continuously sell to, and the mechanisms of actually exporting, the documentation, and so on and so forth. So how do you feel, can we enable all of these MSMEs into exporting, especially when you look at the cyclic buying behavior of people the world over?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Vinod, for bringing out that external lens onto the conversation. Many times we continue to focus only on the domestic market, but there's a fair degree of market which is sitting outside our shores. And I would like to divide that into two segments, the B2C segment and the B2B segment. Let me start with B2B segment. E-commerce is not only B2C. So from B2B perspective, I would like to take an example of a country which has done it very, very well. Okay. If you look at Germany, for example, right? So there is a large amount of German manufacturing base, which actually is mid-scale. Right? It's called the Mittelstand. It's part of the Bavarian and upper regions where there are hundreds of companies. Each of the company works on a specific area. So it could be a very specific auto part, for example, but they are world leader in whatever they do. Okay. Now, how did they go about it? So what German government did is that they actually set up a task force focused on these mid and small entrepreneurs. And they wanted to grow Mittelstand in a big way. And they set up a national fund, which will be used to educate as well as seed innovations from a digital e-commerce perspective onto all these companies. Second was they set up a very comprehensive skill development program so that they are able to access the skill which are required to have that. And third is that the government also sort of actively promoted access to global markets for these companies through various channels which were possible. And these could be the B2B promotion activities, this could be through intergovernment contact, this could be through trade promotion schemes, and so on and so forth. So there are a multitude of interventions which were taken by the German government to improve the opportunities for these organizations. Now, what has happened in the last 6 years since that initiative was taken up is now MSMEs actually contribute the Mittelstand more than 20% of the total manufacturing which is done in Germany, right? And they are now so efficient, and they have such a, I would say, a good share of the global market in their respective domains that they have now, many of them have grown on to become very, very large companies as well. So if we want to make Atmanirbhar Bharat or Make in India campaign a success, we would have to give MSMEs access to the India market as well as global market. And especially from a B2B perspective, e-commerce and digital channels can be that I would say magic potion which will help our MSMEs gain access to these markets and be successful. And there is enough and more examples of the German government doing it and the Chinese government doing it and trade promotion organizations doing it for us to take inspiration from and go after it. So that's why. Now coming on to the B2C side, okay. Now from a B2C perspective, again, the product base is of two kinds. One is which appeals to Indian diaspora. And Indian diaspora, incidentally, is one of the largest diasporas that you can see worldwide, right? More Indians live outside our borders than maybe the population of a small country. So, so from that perspective, what we need to do is to create those platforms, opportunities for our MSMEs to gain access to the diaspora. Now, already there is a huge latent demand with the diaspora, and here there is a eagerness to supply, right? What we need to do is do a matchmaking and bring them together. The challenge in that matchmaking essentially is that the supply side currently is very, very fragmented, right? And there are many platforms which are currently doing it to aggregate, for example, ethnic products, food stuff, and so on and so forth, and supplying it to the diaspora abroad. Now, what possibly needs to be further enabled is through, of course, the policy support onto such initiatives. There is a fair degree of export promotion work that anyways happens through the multilateral organizations as well as the government of India. If this element can also be added onto it and expanded, I think it will, not only expand the MSME opportunity pool, but secondly, because this specific area, which is the, I would say, ethnic products or specific product, it tends to be labor intensive. It will have a multiplier impact on the employment generation in the country. So that's the other theme that I wanted to sort of put on here. The Sec 2B part of that, which essentially is B2C, but products which are made for the global audience and market, I think that is where we have not even scratched the surface, right? There are, and in fact, I have been in many of the SME forums. There are tons of fairly innovative companies out there which are doing fantastic work in terms of innovation in India. So for example, I met a company. It was based in Kerala. They are making night vision devices. Okay, and they're a small company, but the algorithm and the design that they have done is so good that they are one of the approved vendors for the US Army, right? And they're not selling to Indian Army, by the way, right now. But just beyond the Army, there are so many use cases that are out there for industrial, oil and gas, infrastructure heavy sectors, right? For night vision, vision analytics, video analytics kind of services and devices that it just needs to be tapped into. Now, what is happening is that these companies which are creating these innovative products and services are still not able to get access. And that could be because of awareness. It could be because of policy support issues. It could also be just as simple as capital, right? You need, of course, capital to get access. So if you need to be there, if you need to be present over there, for even from a support perspective and so on, you need a certain amount of capital investment to go in to be successful. So I think there needs to be a comprehensive, almost if I was to call it, national program or a mission mode program to enable our MSMEs to gain access to the global market. It will bring in, of course, the foreign currency into the country, which is good in terms of exports. But more importantly, I would say it will help our organizations gain access to the world scale, gain technology, and become large in their own might, and generate employment, which, of course, is a very topical subject these days. So these are the few thoughts that I had on the subject that you wanted me to cover. Vinod, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Sorry. I didn't want to disturb other people, so I put myself on mute. But I'd like the producer to please put up the questions that people are putting up on the various platforms that we are live on. And if the producer can put up the first question, please, so we can then group for answers here. Okay, so we have Asad saying, how do we localize and make aware small kirana shops to be part of this digital ambit? It's precisely what Ajit has been talking about. How do we look at the very basics, in terms of the smaller enterprises? How do we help them to also be part of this digital revolution? So would you like to take it, or Nitin, would you like to take it? Or maybe all of us can have our say. If Nitin, would you like to take that question?
Sorry, could you just repeat the question? I couldn't hear it properly.
How do we localize and make aware small kirana shops to be part of this digital revolution that is happening as far as SMEs are concerned?
Sure. So I'm sorry, I can't see the question here, but essentially, I think kiranas obviously are the backbone for local level retail, if you may, in that sense, in the country, right? And I think we talked about some of those pieces initially in our conversations, but if you want to really leverage the internet or even get digital, there are lots of alternatives available. Of course, the easiest way that people typically get online, or at least kirana stores or local grocery stores try to get online, is using the ubiquitous WhatsApp. Create a WhatsApp group and get online. But beyond that, obviously, there are hyper local solutions also available. So, for example, you could get onto a platform, and there are multiple of them. So, for example, there's a startup called Nowflows, which would essentially, not only list you up there, but would give you real-time information in terms of what's happening in your locality. So if I'm staying in Gurgaon in Sector 50, what's happening in Sector 50, who's buying what? So I could potentially be ready for customers. It could also provide for a mechanism for customers to actually place orders there and pick it up at your store or at your kirana store if possible, or if required. So those solutions are already up and available, and like I said, it's fairly simple to actually get online and utilize that. Beyond that, and just coming back from my domain background, if you're in a regional place, so for example, so Ajit said he's from Kerala. So if you're from Kerala, would you want to serve your customer in English? Would you want to serve your customer in Malayali? Obviously, Malayali would make more sense. So you could actually get your own web presence even on a Malayali domain. So customers could actually search for you online, look for you online, get the same regional content, look it up there. So there are lots of ways you could potentially.
Sushant, would you like to add to it?
Yes, I think there were a lot of debate happening about relevance of kirana shops in the digital world, and then COVID happened, and so we were only going to the local kirana shops, right? And they sort of became the lifeline in many areas. So I would say that from a digital perspective or e-commerce perspective, I foresee that there would be models which will evolve, which will enable large players and smaller kirana shops to coexist and thrive. What large players bring onto the table is the wideness of the merchandise, pricing visibility, access, as well as availability. What kirana shops bring to the table essentially is proximity to the customer, shorter turnaround time, and in many cases, the relationships that they have. So the way I see it as it will not be either or story, especially in a country like India. I mean, we have been now doing modern trade for multiple decades, but our modern trade penetration is still very small as compared to what is there in other countries, right? We still have a lot of off trade, general trade kind of. Historically, India is a market like that, and therefore, I personally believe that they will coexist. There are already many platforms, which we all know, who are actively working with kirana shops for the last mile fulfillment or stock keeping and on-site delivery. So I would say those innovations will continue to happen, and kirana shops would have a strong role to play going forward. But having said that, if I was a small kirana shop owner, I wouldn't get complacent and say that things will come to me. I think there is definitely a change which is happening, and we will also need to see how to continue to be relevant and what are my hooks to engage the customer. So end of day, in an e-commerce business, the biggest question is who owns the customer, right? So if I can create a differentiation over there in terms of, for example, accessibility or customer service and so on, I would say there will be a role for me in the value chain.
Very correct. Kamla, yes, you'd like to add?
Yes. So, adding on to what Sushant just said, there are a few things which come to my mind. One is even the bigger companies have, started their programs which support the local kirana shop. So, like Amazon has this Go Local program, which is essentially for their kirana stores. So, you can actually buy from your local kirana stores by using Amazon. Second is, when we say digital, we are going digital. It's not only e-commerce, so as to say, so when you're using Google Pay to make a payment, or you're using Phone Pay or Paytm to make payments, you're still going digital. And I think I found Sushant's comment very relevant, that business as such has always been survival of the fittest. You are, whether you're online or you're offline. So even if I'm a kirana store and say you are also a kirana store, I'm again competing with you. So, how do I stay relevant? Maybe I add more products to my product line, or, I make a fancy store. So this is from a personal experience. I saw this in my period. I have seen them going really flashy. They've got like, a bigger store, better lighting, bigger boards, going digital. They're taking all the payments online. They're delivering at home. So I think it's important always, you have to keep innovating. You have to, like, I think accessibility to the customer, and especially in this COVID time, there was a there was a huge amount of time when we were not able to order online. We were just doing, going to our offline stores. At that time, kirana stores have been very relevant. So I
Yes.
think as Sushant just rightly said, it's not going to be either. It's going to be an and story. So we will survive together. But I think, like any other business, you have to keep innovating. You have to stay relevant. You cannot leave, forget that bus or leave that bus. You have to just keep innovating and become relevant. So those are the things which come to my mind, that yes, that will help the local kirana shops to survive.
Jinal, have you supported any kirana shops in the recent past? You work with a lot of MSMEs.
Yeah, so of course, kirana stores are, everyone's favorite when it comes to the purchase. But yes, it is very difficult for a small kirana shop to, put out all their inventory on online and then maintain everything with the kind of investment they will have. Either will have to, put in for the inventory management softwares, and then make it in a very low, it has to improvise their own or operational activity. But on the contrary, as Nitin has said, that they can actually go for a hyper local, or they can do a WhatsApp, or they can create, like how Kamna is mentioning, that they can slowly and steadily get into the accepting online payment, or giving the deliveries to the customers who are in their who are already buying since, like, ages from there. And so how the first part for any kirana store or a local kirana store is not to compete with big basket. The first part is to make a slow and steady growth in their own offline activity, whatever they are doing, improvise that and make it in a digital, convert that in a digital manner, and then move towards having a big basket kind of a dream. Um, a lot of time when I kind of converse with startups, or businesses, they want to become an Amazon, or they want to become XYZ. But I would say, you have been doing something since last so many years. Why are you
Right.
thinking that you are very small in compared to whatever the brand which is? So they have started their journey, you have started your journey. So now when you are saying that I am a small kirana store, I don't agree with that, because maybe a big brand would not be serving that kind of inventory what you, as a small shop, out there in your locality, you are serving to the clients. So build up on what you already have, and then improvise into the digital, like convert all your processes into digital, and then slowly and steadily move into the entire full-fledged e-commerce kind of thing. Because when you are targeting a customer, when you are in an offline business, and if you are targeting a customer from somewhere outside your locality, I think you are ditching your own customer who have been trusting your brand since so many years. So to this guy, to the person who has asked this question, I would say you can digitalize, as she has mentioned, that go with the online payment, start with your build up your database, give them on WhatsApp contact, on WhatsApp services, deliver them at home, and then slowly and steadily make a understand how they are liking. Maybe big basket is working because they have got a different set of product and audience, versus you having your own website and digitizing your business may not serve to the current buyers who is actually in trust with you. So
Cool.
I think that's my take on.
I think that answers Asal's question. We have another question from Rahul. What are the challenges? This is very, very specific to Kamna. What are the challenges faced by Kamna in going online, and how did she face them? So Kamna, we all want to know about successful entrepreneurs. How do they do that? And what do you go through? And how do you get over those challenges?
Okay, thank you, Rahul, for that question. So there were many challenges, I think, both at a skill set level as an entrepreneur, but all the skills which I should have had beginning of my journey, and then a lot of personal challenges as well. Whether I'll be able to do it or not, whether I'll be able to take the challenges or not, can I think through or not. So I think professionally, if you look at it like skill set, so um, when we were, so my journey started from a discount coupon company to pivoting to a gift voucher company to pivoting to a e-commerce platform for gifting. So it was a journey. So I think the first challenge was to stay relevant and still stay hopeful and be confident in myself that okay, I'm failing but I'll still pivot and go next step. I'll fail again but I'll not give up. So we kept failing but we kept moving forward, and I think that was the biggest challenge, which is man ki shakti. So that was the biggest challenge which we had to face in our journey. And I think then there were a lot of things, so what to sell, how to sell, um, what is it that my customer wants, can I bring it to the table with the price competitiveness. So because when you look at the e-commerce thing, it's heavily discounted. So I go to an offline space, I see a product, and then I go and check it online and see, okay, इस पे तो बहुत discount मिल रहा है. So how do I still deliver a quality product but at a good price point? So and ensuring that quality, because see, you have an offline store, you deliver a bad product, that one customer will come to you and maybe complain to you about it. But when you go online and one of the customers leaves you a negative feedback, everyone who comes back to your store is looking at it, right? So and if you so there's this study which says that one person has like 250 people in their lifetime. So it's a very कॉमन प्रोवर्ब विच यू से कि शादी पे बुलाना है तो 250 लोग आ जाएंगे हमारे उसमें, सब किसी का डेथ हो गया तो 250 लोग आ जाएंगे. सो द 250 लोग is an average number a person has, that average number of contacts in your lifetime. So if you deliver a bad product, people can actually propagate that to 250 people, like one person can do that, and that is like word of mouth. But if you're online, then anybody who comes to your shop sees that thing. So I think delivering quality product at a price competitive, a price competitive quality product, still making profits. And I think we have been a bootstrapped startup in the entire journey. So, and I think a lot of SMEs and MSMEs who are there with us today will have a similar journey. We don't all get fancy funding. So we earn, we put that back into the business, we earn, and then we put that back in the machine. So it's important. I think that was another challenge. How we were able to do it was, in a way, we tried to create the products ourselves. So cutting the middlemen in between, a lot of negotiations, a lot of mandwali skills of ours as a founder, कि इतने का नहीं, इतने में ही करेंगे और अच्छा ही काम करेंगे. So I think a lot of relationships which you make in your journey with the right set of people, with your vendors, you need to ensure a good cash flow. So those were a lot, a lot of challenges and a lot of learnings in the journey. That's how we did it.
Okay, so I have another one here. Says, I'm facing an issue of attracting perfect customers. I want to convert my random shoppers into paying customers and retain them. Need insights. How would I do that? Jinal, would you be able to take that?
Pranav, hi. Thank you for raising this question. But just to disappoint you, there is no perfect customer. You have to engage every user who is coming in. You have to tell them or give the vibe of your brand or your product or of your own personality as well sometimes, and then only they will get to know about your brand, about your product, and slowly and steadily he will become a customer of yours. There is the only right formula is what I say is the C's of e-commerce. You had to create you had to always create your content which connects to your customers, and it really then only the conversion will happen. So whenever you are saying that I want to attract the customer, sorry to cut out the perfect word because nobody is perfect. The attracting of customer happens only when you are consistent and you are creating something. If you are creating something, then they will connect, and the prospective customer will convert in an actual customer. So those are the very big, that's a very C formula. But yes, you have to do that. Then only you will be able to, understand what they are looking for, and then you can again, as you said, if you want to retain them, then only you will be able to retain them. When I started my, when we were, we just started a website of for the B2C in 2017, and on creative ideas, when I used to sell out my own designs, or the designs which I used to like, slowly and steadily I got to know that okay, people are also liking this because they used to comment on it. But I have to start, I had to start somewhere, and I have pushed those content across social media as well, not just on my website. So when now today, when I am hearing from the customer, every once in a 15-day or a month, I get a feedback from the client that why don't you have this kind of design? So why don't you have this creator on your website? And that's where, so it's an over a period of time now I have got a customer engagement and then retainer. So how retainer happens is because the quality of product which they are liking, or the taste, or how personalization, how you have done the packaging, or the how you are connected with him when you were in his house, like you were in his house, not exactly, but with your product. So how much you are making that small small engagement with the buyers, and connect with very specific codes, then only he or she will come back to your store or remember your brand name.
So now this question I think is for Sushant. It's saying that can India have its own e-commerce portal like Alibaba for MSMEs as an alternative option apart from Amazon, Flipkart, etc., who are ruling this platform? Well, Alibaba
I
actually in Chinese owned. I mean, it's Chinese owned, but it's not the Chinese government owned for that matter. But yes, I mean, we have a lot of Indian owned platforms also, which are doing pretty well, actually.
Absolutely, and I was about to say, I don't see any reason why it cannot be. For all you know, from the viewers that we have here, we'll have enterprising entrepreneur who will actually start it. So I would say, there is no hurdle in that sense to have one. The only challenge I want to highlight is that e-commerce tends to be a network effect business. Okay? So if I was to ask you which is the 10th largest taxi hailing company or the 15th largest e-commerce platform in India, I'm not sure if many of us would be able to answer that. So it tends to be a winner takes it all market by design. The incentive for a new person to go on that platform is higher as compared to staying out. Now, once that happens, then obviously the network effect kicks in and people have to get there. But having said that, we have in the last 15 years or 20 years of e-commerce across the world, we have also seen platforms which were pretty much seen as the answer to the requirement of the customer have gone down. New platforms have emerged. So while I would say e-commerce as a story will continue, whether a particular platform will grow or wane is something which remains to be seen. And we have enough examples in the last 10, 15 years, even in Indian context, right? So we spoke about some of the early stage e-commerce platforms, which at that time were sort of fairly big. So I would say, yes, it can happen, definitely. But it will have to sort of go against the network effect, or maybe build on a unique proposition and then expand onto network effect. We already have had a lot of success, especially in the B2B side, right? So for example, I'll give you an example on Metal Junction. Right? It's a large B2B player. People might not even know about it, but it does business worth thousands of crores, right? And it's already fairly large. So there are these niche areas where there would be opportunities for somebody to go in and build a platform for MSMEs, and then from there land and expand. So first you land and then you expand onto the wider platforms. I also want to highlight that specifically for MSMEs, the government has been developing platforms for access for government procurement and so on. So even that's the other set of platform which are out there. As MSMEs, I would say I wouldn't bother too much about the platform which is out there, right? In a gold rush, don't join the gold rush, but invest in the companies which are selling the tools to the people who go and work in the gold rush, right? Because they will survive. Maybe the companies may or may not survive. So the quality for you is essentially, as MSMEs, build on the capabilities of going and selling online or onto the digital channels. It could be a platform A today, it could be platform B tomorrow, it doesn't matter. But what you need to do is to have that operating structure, financial structure, digital marketing capabilities, product servicing, post-sale support, and all of that. Invest in all those capabilities. The choice of platform, maybe 10 years out, could be completely different from what you are seeing right
now. I think Kamna wanted to add something earlier on. I saw. Yes.
Yeah, that was for the earlier question.
Question. It doesn't matter. You can. The guys will be still listening.
Okay, so I just wanted to add my 2 cents. So for the perfect product, which the gentleman mentioned, so for the perfect product, I think there's one thing which comes to my mind, that in an offline space, people can touch and feel your product. In an online space, they cannot. So unless you enrich your catalog, either it's on your website or it's on a marketplace, but you need to really enrich your catalog. So have better photographs, have better product descriptions, enrich them with more videos, make that catalog more enriching so that you get to your perfect customer. A half-baked thing online is as good as nothing. So that is very important for you to have in an online space.
Very well put. So we have another question from Deepika. She says, how to find the export potential of my product? So who would like to take that question?
I'll take that, and then
okay, Kamna will take it.
Okay, I think there are 2 things how to find export potential. A is, you always do your market study. So you study your market. If you want to export something, you visit that marketplace. So say, for example, you want to export on Amazon.com, you go to that marketplace and see, okay, what is selling in my category? What are people selling? What are people buying? You get a lot of keyword suggestions. So in online space, like an offline आप पूछते हो कि कौन सी दुकान से जाकर लूं, या इसी तरह आप online देखते हो कि what are the keywords through which people are buying. So you can actually gauge the potential of your product by doing such exercises online. And I think second is, you need to test the waters. You can't actually just sit and keep thinking about it. So you might, you may just start with smaller shipments, Deepika, but you start with something. You have to have a risk appetite, and then you pivot and you see that, okay, if this sells or doesn't sells, what does my customer want, and then you pivot again. But unless you get into the waters, you will never know. Must do that. That's it.
So Gino, would you like to add to it? Nitin, anybody? There's also a website which is called from the ITC, which is trademap.org. You can use trademap.org, which has data from UN Comtrade, which tells you about every bit of trade that happens around the world. So all you need to do is put in your HS code, and it will tell you which countries export it, which countries import it, what are the quantities, what are the rates. It will tell you everything. So do a little bit of homework there before you even look at which platform you want to go on. Also, most platforms like Amazon, for that matter, they have studies done of previous years, what has sold, what has not sold, which market has bought what for which platform from India. So look at that also. That could be a viable business sitting right there. So with that, I think we've crossed over to the time. We've already crossed over, but it was fun talking to all of you, sharing with our guests and our viewers today about the potential of e-commerce and the fact that we are in the middle of festive season around the world, and the entire world is today buying online. So if you've got a mechanism for doing it, go ahead and do it. Need any help, come back to us. But if you're not online yet, please do it now before somebody else edges you out of your business. So with that, thank you very much to Prashant, Nitin, Kamna, and Jinal for being here. We had a fun time. We had a lot of questions answered, and we look forward to having you again very soon.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful being here.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.